Good evening, and welcome to the latest happenings inside our federal machine.
It's Ash Wednesday, February 18th, 2026. It's Spaith on with tonight's episode of The Swamp. House Democrat leader Hakeem Jeffries, Timu Obama, he is still blaming Republicans not only for the last Democrat shutdown, the longest in history, by the way, he's also blaming Republicans for the current shutdown. He says Republicans won't stop ICE enforcement, so therefore, Republicans shut down the government. Yeah, okay, dude. And President Trump holds a Black History Month event at the White House today, inviting a number of people to attend the 100th celebration. And FBI Director Kash Patel gives a teaser update on the ongoing investigations into Antifa, saying that a major discovery was made specifically with regard to the primary funding into the domestic terrorist organization. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt briefed the White House press corps today on the latest news and events happening with the president, and we'll check that out. Today, the U.S. Border Patrol announced that a critical section of the southern border has been used by cartels as an artery to traffic humans and drugs into the United States for years, and it has finally been walled off permanently. A deranged lunatic leftist posted a video demanding people to form local militias and gun down ICE agents when they come to town. We also have an update on the number of states that are restricting the use of SNAP benefits for junk food and sodas and other unhealthy store items. And there's a lot more stuff that happened today, so we're going to dive straight in. And if you enjoyed the video, please give the video a quick like when you get a second, and subscribe to the channel if you enjoy watching and hearing the daily updates happening in our federal machine. And if you leave a comment below, I might just read it on tomorrow's episode. And every article you'll see in the video will be linked right down there in the description. So we're going to start right here with RNC research with Timu Obama himself. Hakeem Jeffries blames Republicans as usual for the partial government shutdown that he voted for. Jeffries knows this shutdown would not impact ICE operations, but chose to halt funding for critical agencies such as FEMA, TSA, the freaking Coast Guard, Secret Service, cybersecurity agencies, and the list goes on and on. So let's hear him.
But instead of fixing the problem, which Democrats have given our Republican colleagues an opportunity to do, they've shut down crucial parts of the Department of Homeland Security.
What a fucking scumbag, man. These people are such fucking scumbags. And of course, the brain dead useful idiots that pay attention to mainstream news, they're just going to blindly believe that without even thinking, well, wait a minute. So who voted what exactly? I mean, why don't we actually look to see who voted for what? So the Republicans voted to shut down DHS. So the Republicans voted to stop giving money to FEMA, TSA, and the Coast Guard. Oh, they didn't. So, okay, so the Democrats did that? So they were the ones that said no money to the Coast Guard, TSA, FEMA, Secret Service, and cybersecurity. Oh, okay, well then why are they saying the Republicans shut it down? Oh, because they don't want to put a complete stop to ICE. That's why, Immigration and Customs Enforcement. So that's what the Democrats are saying, just like the last government shutdown, because the Republicans did not want to cave to their demands for $1.5 trillion in woke bullshit funding, as well as extending the Obamacare subsidy extension. Then, therefore, the Republicans shut down the government. They shut it down because they wouldn't cave into our demands for continued psychopathic, extremely hyperinflated Obamacare healthcare funding. So, yeah, the end. But anyway, so we already saw how the last government shutdown played out. It lasted something like 43 days. The Democrats got absolutely nothing whatsoever. Some of the political pundits believe that the Democrats are only doing this until Trump gives the State of the Union speech, which I think is happening next week. And then they'll just quietly do what they did last time and just vote to reopen, which really it's a partial government shutdown. It's not a full government shutdown, of course. The only part that I know of that has been affected is the Department of Homeland Security, except for Immigration and Customs Enforcement, because they've already been funded for like the next 3 years or something like that. They've already received $75 billion in funding. So this whole partial shutdown thing is absolute nonsense. It's completely ridiculous. They're ultimately not going to get anything out of this except more bad press, more just negative attention driven directly to Democrats, just like what happened in the last government shutdown. All right, so anyway, the red-headed libertarian from 14 hours ago says the longest talking filibuster ever was a 60-day multiple-speaker failed Democrat attempt to block the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Tying up the floor for unlimited amount of time is a risk, but if you don't take that risk, the SAVE Act is DOA. Now, I think that there's a little bit more to that. To be fair, there were a lot of Democrats that at the time, not historically, but at the time, because I'm sure a lot of them were worried about getting reelected, they were for the Civil Rights Act of 1964. They voted for it. The Northern Democrats did. It was the Southern Democrats who were staunchly against it, and they were the ones who were doing this whole talking filibuster for 60 straight days. So I just wanted to put that out there. So let's give this a watch. Let me see if I can, there we go, and try to bring it full screen. All right, here we go.
Enormous difficulty of doing that. In fact, the biggest majority have not been able to.
Right. Well, I guess, and I would just remind people that the coin in the realm in the Senate is floor time. There's a finite amount of it, and we have a lot of things we have to do. There's a housing bill that's awaiting action, hopefully a market structure bill.
Oh, crap. I had a feeling that was going to happen. All right, whatever. Here, I'll try it again. All right, here we go. My apologies.
Bill, you can go right down the list. Russia sanctions, there are a whole bunch of things that could be teed up for action on the floor of the Senate. And so you have to make some judgments, and the conference will have a conversation about that. I've committed to that we will talk about that idea and determine whether or not what the conference's views are about it and how they want to proceed. As I said, we will vote on the SAVE Act, but exercising or triggering a talking filibuster has ramifications, implications that I think everybody needs to be aware of.
Who cares? Do it.
We will have those discussions, but that's obviously ties the floor up for an indefinite amount of time.
Yeah, well, this would be the perfect time to do it, dude, because in case you didn't know, we've got a midterm election coming up in November, and let's say September or October would not be the wisest time to be holding a talking filibuster. They need to do it right now. Or at least just pass whatever he believes that's imperative that needs to be passed immediately, and then open the floor wide open for a talking filibuster for the foreseeable future. Unless maybe he's not telling us that there's senators in the background that they're gearing up for it. They're getting more physically fit. They're exercising their larynx, their vocal cords, and they're eating and they're exercising and all that stuff. I don't know, whatever you need to do to get 100% in shape for a talking filibuster. Maybe that's what they're doing behind the scenes. Maybe it's just the senators that are going to take the floor and drag this thing on for countless hours and hours. Maybe they're just not adequately prepared yet. They're getting well rested. They're going to go into their weigh-ins next week. They're going to get all prepped and ready for this big talking filibuster. Or maybe he's not going to do it, and the entire country is going to hate his guts for it.
Not only unlimited debate, but also unlimited amendments.
All right, rather we had the Senate Majority Leader and the Speaker there.
All right, yeah, because we already know this, that if they were just to put it to the floor for a vote, they need 60 votes for it to pass, and it's never going to happen. It's not going to pass by just putting it to the floor for a vote, unless they decide to nuke the filibuster entirely, in which case they already have enough votes for it to pass. They've got 51 votes to pass the SAVE Act. And then it goes directly to President Trump's desk where it'll be signed, and it'll become federal law that every state in the country will require voter ID, and their ID will be verified that they are indeed a U.S. citizen by way of a birth certificate or a passport. And I think there's a couple other credentials that you can use. But anyway, so we've got one more. Let's see what this other video is. I think I'm just going to play it in this window just so I don't jack it up again.
You ready?
Oh, Lindsey Graham.
Back there? Thumbs up from
Okay,
there. Okay,
here we go.
Well, I'm Senator Lindsey Graham from South Carolina.
Yeah, we know.
I'm back.
What do you want this time?
I come here every 2 weeks where I need to or not. So why did I come this time? To put a fine point of where we're
in
at
Israel.
as a world
Shocker.
regarding the Iranian regime.
Of course he's in Israel.
You ready?
South Carolina senator.
Thumbs
Why
up
wouldn't he
back
be
there?
there?
Thumbs up from everybody. Okay. Well,
Okay, so that was it. All right. Well, that was pretty much pointless. I don't know if they were just showing the fact that he's in Israel for some weird reason. But anyway, redheaded libertarian. And we'll move on to Chairman Joe Gruters. This is a lie. So what is a lie? Let's check this out first before I get their response. RNC Research Democrat Rep. Jared Moskowitz gets called out for lying about common sense voter ID that the overwhelming majority of Americans support. Yes, 71% of Democrats, what is it, 95% of Republicans. I think the number is like roughly 85% if you average all of them, independents, Democrats, and Republicans all together. Yeah, it's like 85% of the country is perfectly fine. They're all about voter ID. So yeah, they're definitely trying to spin it in a way that it disenfranchises a lot of people from voting. I already went over all those statistics yesterday. They're trying to say like black people can't vote because they don't have ID. We already went over the numbers. There's a vast majority. It's like 94% of black Americans already have the proper ID necessary to vote. And anyway, so it goes on to say, Moskowitz, it would affect women. It will depress turnout. Fox Business, that's not true, Congressman. All right, well, let's hear the back and forth.
Having an ID to vote
it's spicy.
would be
already
in step with the law. So
it would
are you going to vote for the law?
No.
If they put forward a bill that says you can use your driver's license or your state-issued identification to vote, I suppose.
That's not good enough. That's not good enough because that doesn't verify that you are a U.S. citizen. Illegal immigrants, which we already know, in a number of blue states, they're given driver's licenses on the regular. And they probably don't even take a driver's test or anything. They just hand them out like they're nothing. So that's not good enough. Perhaps if your state made it a requirement in order to obtain a driver's license that you're verified as a U.S. citizen, which they don't do. I don't even know if any state does that, actually. So until that happens, ain't good enough, dude.
We have that in Florida, but the SAVE Act goes way beyond that. It would affect women whose birth certificate doesn't match the driver's.
Baloney. They keep saying that, like the women's birth certificate wouldn't match the driver's license. No, I would say that the argument would be even stronger, that if their maiden name is still on their birth certificate, that would even further prove that they are who their birth certificate indicates that they are.
License. It will depress turnout by requiring people to go and re-register to go get this.
No, it won't.
Congressman.
No, it won't.
Not true.
No, it is. It is absolutely true.
No, and people who don't have an ID right now, they're not going and voting anyway. Even in states where an ID is not required to go vote, these people are not voting. If you don't have a driver's license, you probably don't have the priority to vote at the top of your list.
This is about depressing turnout. It's not about making sure non-citizens vote.
Yes, it is. That's what it's all about. It's all about getting illegal immigrants to not vote. And it's all about fortifying the voter rolls in all of these blue states where people are voting multiple times because they're not updating their voter rolls year over year. And that causes people who move from address to address to address, because a lot of us, we move fairly frequently. So if you move like 6 times over the last 10 years, guess what's getting sent to all those other addresses? Your ballot.
That is not true either, Congressman. The SAVE Act is a requirement for ID to vote, period.
Oh, man, that was spicy. Awesome. Yeah, Mornings with Maria. That doesn't usually get that heated, but that was cool. So that happened today. So here's the response from Chairman Joe Gruters. The Save America Act will secure our elections and ensure only American citizens can vote in American elections. That's the way it should be. I wonder how they do it in other countries. Do they verify that you are a citizen of said country before you are given the ability to cast your ballot? I would assume that most countries do. Okay, from the White House, Democrats say America's elections are not secure, yet oppose making voter ID and U.S. citizenship the standard. Reality check. Secure elections start with this. Hillary Clinton, in her own words.
I think it's also critical to understand that, as I've been telling candidates who have come to see me, you can run the best campaign, you can even become the nominee, and you can have the election stolen from you. I think it's also...
Well, all right. Of course, still talking about getting the election stolen from her. She's just never going to get over that now, is she? From the White House, even Speaker Pelosi agrees the sanctity of the vote and the integrity of our elections are at stake. That's why we need to require voter ID and pass the Save America Act. Not just voter ID, but voter ID that has verified everyone with the voter ID that they are indeed a U.S. citizen. And you remember when they were fighting tooth and nail to try to keep the citizenship question off of the census? Now, why were they doing that? Why were Democrats so freaked out about that one single question being put onto the census, whether if you're a U.S. citizen or not? Because they want more congressional seats. That's why they opened the floodgates during the Biden administration and let tens of millions of illegals pour in, and they went directly to the blue states because they're all sanctuary states. So, of course, they went to all the blue states. All right, let's hear what Nancy Pelosi has to say.
Will make clear that we in this House stand with the president, yes, but with the American people to fight for voting rights. Nothing less is at stake than our democracy.
Okay.
The sanctity of the vote, the integrity of our elections. That is what is at stake.
All right. Wow. I can't believe that I actually agree with Nancy Pelosi on something. That's really nice that she's on board with the Republicans. She's all about the SAVE Act. Now, of course, this didn't happen today. It didn't happen yesterday. I don't even know. They didn't give an exact date, but I'm sure it probably wasn't all that recently. Although she kind of does look old and decrepit there, so it couldn't have been that long ago. Plus, we got masks in the background, so it must have happened probably during the Biden era. Maybe. Anyway, FBI Director Kash Patel from today. The FBI arrested a violent fugitive wanted in Indianapolis for crimes against children. The individual was arrested near the southern border. The arrest was part of Operation No Escape, FBI's multi-agency initiative to track down and apprehend violent fugitives. Well done, FBI San Antonio and our Safe Streets Task Force with great state, local, and federal interagency partners. And it says that he was arrested February the 4th, 37-year-old from Indiana, wanted for crimes against children. FBI SA Safe Streets Task Force Operation No Escape. All right, got another one off the streets. What seems, I don't know if he was trying to escape to Mexico, to Mexico. I'm not sure, but he didn't get there. All right, from fanatic, absolutely deranged anti-ICE protester in Minnesota tries to pepper spray and stab someone for simply trolling them.
Oh, it's two stinky pussies.
Oh, shit.
That's a really stinky one.
Uh-oh. Oh, shit.
Oh, what are you gonna do? Oh, what are you gonna do? She's trying to cut my tire. Oh my God, what the fuck, bro?
Wow, what a lunatic.
Fuck it. I ain't calling the cops.
He said, fuck it, I ain't even gonna call.
We'll let her run around wild like Hennepin County wants.
Yeah, like Hennepin County wants, because they won't. The cops are gonna show up anyway, and he knows damn well they're not gonna show up. Oh man, that was funny. I saw just like the first 5 seconds of it, but without audio, so I didn't realize that he was also verbally trolling her. I figured he had something like written on her car or something, or maybe had like an ICE bumper sticker and she freaked out over it. But yep, raving lunatics. You don't find a whole lot of them over on the right or on the conservative side, but they 100% exist over on the left. That's for damn sure. And speaking of which, from Defiant L's that was posted a couple hours ago, quote, "Get your guns, get your militia, get your people. And when ICE comes to town, don't give them a chance. Get a sniper and SHOOT. Can I say that on YouTube? And shoot? I'm going to go for it. Get a sniper and shoot. Blow their effing faces off. Watch them effing drown in their own GD blood." So, another raving lunatic.
And I'm seeing
on the left, of
being
course,
killed
because that's where they live
ICE.
today.
What the fuck are you guys doing? I hope you see this video, because I'm going to tell America right here, right now, this ends when we stand up and we start shooting back. Get your guns, get your militia, get your people. And when ICE comes to town, don't give them a chance. Get a sniper and shoot. Blow their fucking faces off. Watch them fucking drown in their own goddamn blood. Because America will be great again when we realize that we're the ones who make the rules, people. If you don't like the motherfuckers that are in there, then take them the
Democrats
out. Because if you don't, they're going to take us the fuck out. Stand up for your goddamn rights. Stop being pussies. Stop yelling, asking them what's wrong with them. What's wrong with them is they've been given power that does not fucking belong to them. Because we act like
they've had power since 2002. I think it was 2002.
Tables. Let them know who's fucking boss and take the motherfuckers out. It's as serious and as simple as that. Pick up your guns, end the tyranny, and blow their fucking asses away. Game over.
All right. Well, is that really going to be how the lunatic left is going to see this to the end? Are we going to end up in some like Civil War confrontation against them? Because I mean, I don't think that they really realize that they're poking a hornet's nest, man. Like they're swinging a bat at a hornet's nest. Whether if they're talking about the federal government in general, or if they're just talking about like us versus conservatives, because on the conservative side, behind every blade of grass is a freaking firearm. So I don't even know, man. I don't know if they're going to arrest her or not. I think that was a call to action. I'm sure that that's probably an arrestable offense for what she was saying. Wouldn't surprise me at all if I find out tomorrow that she was indeed arrested, or maybe she already was arrested. I don't know, but that was quite over the top, man. These people are losing their ever-loving minds. All right, from Brian Allen. Unreal. An American citizen was followed by an unmarked car, boxed in, dragged from her vehicle, injured, and left in a parking lot after agents found her passport. I mean, could you could just visualize just the ridiculousness behind this statement. She was on her way to pay rent and buy a birthday cake for her grandson. A torn rotator cuff, a concussion, bruised ribs, no help, no explanation. This is happening to ordinary people. This is not enforcement. This is lawless violence. Okay, I guess if you say so, but we've got a statement.
She was driving to go pay her rent and to pick up a birthday cake for her 14-year-old grandson.
Yeah, she wasn't stalking agents. She wasn't following them around. She wasn't screaming at them. Like, none of the sort, because, yeah, they're totally not doing that on an every single day basis.
That day. And as she was driving, she noticed that she was being followed by a car that didn't have a license plate. Within minutes, it happened where the car put their lights on, she got boxed in, and she was pulled over.
So how does she know all this? She wasn't there. Is it just her words? Is this it? Just her words? I mean, if there were agents, if they were indeed agents, then they would have had a dash cam. There's a pretty decent likelihood that they have body cams. I can actually look that up to see if in the state of Oregon, if federal agents already have body cams, because something like 30% of federal agents, they've already got body cameras, at least according to Secretary Caroline Leavitt.
She had no information about what was happening. The people got out of the car. They had vests on that said police.
Okay, well then they're police.
On her window, telling her to open her door. She was scared.
Okay, so they're giving her a lawful order. All right, let's move on.
Asthma.
So what? Asthma doesn't give you free reign to commit any crime you want.
She didn't know if tear gas was going to be used on her. She watches TV like everyone else. When she didn't respond, they broke her window and pulled her out of her car.
Yeah, that tends to happen. When you disobey a lawful order, they will bust your window out, they'll open your door, and they will yank you out of the car.
She has injuries that were, like, she went to the hospital later that day with a torn rotator cuff, a concussion.
Well, did she not unbuckle her seatbelt? Does she weigh 400 pounds?
Concussion and bruised ribs. They then started to go through her car. They found her purse. They emptied it. They saw a passport, and they walked away. And they left her there with no resources.
Highly
or
doubt
no
that.
help, and injured on the side, like in a parking lot.
Now, how many protesters were in the vicinity? Were they being surrounded by a small army filled with protesters to the point where they were being boxed in to the point where they had to leave? Otherwise, they were going to be dealing with a pretty hostile situation.
She then called her daughter, who happened to be on the phone with her union. And I think
yeah,
that
of course.
part is important. Because the
probably had
reality is
another
this is happening
activist
to
organization
people
on her
every
other
day
phone.
here in Oregon, and they may not be part of a union. They may not have a place that knows exactly what to do to call PERC, to get legal observers, to send people to support her, take her to the.
What does a union have to do with anything at all? If she's just some everyday citizen just driving home, what the hell is a union gonna do?
Hospital and make sure her story gets
Is this like
told.
some left-wing activist union?
There's stories like this happening every day, not just in Minnesota, but in our backyard here.
Yeah,
in
when you
Oregon.
obstruct officers.
And not all of those stories are being told. And so as we think about what we need to do, that story is about what is happening in our backyard.
So this is a tactic that the mainstream news does. They give out these wild statements that are completely, just smeared from left to right, just painting this just extreme, the most extreme situation humanly possible. And then a couple of days later, the Department of Homeland Security or Immigration and Customs Enforcement or Border Patrol agents, whoever it was that initiated this stop, they're going to release the actual footage as to what happened, and the mainstream media won't play a second of it. They're going to put this on blast, so everybody who watches left-wing media, they're going to see this interview, and there's no doubt about that, or this press conference, but they're not going to get a second's worth of the actual truth as to what really happened.
And so today we're here, and with our support of congressional delegations, saying, like, this has to stop because it's making our members, our community members, our neighbors unsafe.
No, what needs to stop is the lack of cooperation. Stop effing with agents. Stop following them around. Stop trolling around behind them everywhere they go. Stop obstructing them and stop assaulting them and things like that. All right, Homeland Security, we want to pay them thousands of dollars and fly them home. All they must do is ask. So this is from Jim Acosta. You're jailing children. This is not family separation. It's family devastation. You said you were going after the worst of the worst. You lied. And please, we see you. We see your horrendous white nationalist posts. We see the delight you take in harming Latinos. Shame on you. Which, of course, when they're arresting criminals, they generally don't allow the children to go with the criminals. So if you get arrested for, just name your crime, and you have to go to jail, and you had your kid with you at the time, they're not going to let your kid go to jail with you. That's just no, it never happens. It just doesn't happen. They take your kid and they put him into whether if it's DHS or if it's Immigration and Customs Enforcement, like in the situations that are happening with the illegal immigrants, which of course, I shouldn't even have to explain this. I mean, he's just drumming up the drama. Anyway, Homeland Security, the mother chose to take her child into custody with her because she is an illegal immigrant. The mother chose to enter and remain in the country illegally. The mother chose not to take $2,600 and a free flight home. There's a lot of them who aren't, but there's a lot of them who are. And then looks like originally Jim Acosta said this: why is a 2-month-old baby detained by ICE? Are we going to have some standards of decency as a country? Do the people in power hate Latinos that much? Please stop the madness. And then Joaquin Castro, I have an update on Juan Nicholas, 2-month-old baby detained at Dilley and his mother. Me and my team, oh, good grief, this is long. Me and my team have been in contact with Juan's family. Juan has bronchitis, according to his mom, which, by the way, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, federal agents in general, they have healthcare facility, or they have healthcare staff on site at any detention facility, any child care facility with regard to immigration. And Department of Homeland Security has said repeatedly that it is almost certainly the best healthcare that they've ever received in their whole life. And at some point in the last several hours, he was unresponsive. Juan was still discharged from the hospital. Despite that, around midnight today, Juan's mom went in front of an immigration judge this morning. She was told she will be deported, but was not told when or where. Probably immediately if she has a final order of removal. Both Juan and his mom are back at Dilley, and their future remains uncertain. We are all deeply concerned that Juan and his mom will be deported and that Juan's health will continue to deteriorate. His life is in danger because ICE's monstrous cruelty. I will continue to provide updates, and we will keep fighting to protect them. Typical gaslighting, typical propaganda. And what else is new? So let's go back. I'll go back. And I think one more, right? Yeah, one more. Okay, so from Homeland Security, I'll just read the first part again. We want to pay them thousands of dollars and fly them home. And all they must do is ask. The only reason they're in detention is because they chose to be in detention. This is the generosity of America and her citizens. That is absolutely true. Literally thousands of dollars. What was it, $2,600 that we're paying each illegal immigrant to leave the country and a free flight home? So we're giving them money to reestablish themselves. We don't have to do that. Well, all we really have any obligation to do is just fly them essentially on the other side of the southern border. Isn't that what the Obama administration was doing? So if they captured an illegal immigrant and they deported them, were they actually nice enough to fly them all the way back to their country of origin if it was out beyond Mexico, or did they just release them on the other side of the border and just said, to hell with you? I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. Maybe they did fly them back to their home countries. Anyway, Senator Dick Durbin, another person has died in ICE custody, this time in ICE's Chicago field office jurisdiction. Despite this shocking update, ICE and DHS continue to restrict congressional oversight of detention facilities, denying accountability for this administration and justice for the victims' families. So according to Senate Judiciary Democrats, a 59-year-old in ICE custody passed away on Monday, marking the 7th. So it's only been 7 deaths in immigration detention facilities in 2026. The reason I say that it's only 7 is because if you look at the American the American prison system, of all the Americans that are incarcerated, over 5,000 die in there per year in the justice system, in our prison system. So 7, not really a whole lot. And the vast majority, it's like 98 or 99% of illegal immigrants that die while in custody, it's because they have an underlying chronic condition. And I think they add the control-alt-deleting of oneself to that list also. But certainly not by the hands of immigration agents. They're not being starved to death. It's all just a bunch of Democrat bullshit. And as far as the not allowing congressional or members of Congress to go into detention facilities, look, I actually side with them on that. I don't know why they're not allowing them in. They say that they have to give them 72 hours notice so they can essentially lock down the facility and make it safe for members of Congress to go around. I don't think it should take 72 hours. It should only take like 20 minutes. Make sure all the cells are locked. Make sure, everything is reasonably safe. And then remind members of Congress that you're entering at your own risk. So God forbid something happens. We're warning you right now. You didn't give us 72 hours notice for us to fully lock down the facility to make it 100% safe for you. So come on in. I mean, I don't know why they're not doing that, but I get it. The only reason the Democrats want to go in there is just to make up a bunch of shit that's not even real. They want to say that they witnessed the worst atrocities imaginable, when anything but is actually taking place. I'm sure the facilities are way better than even facilities for Americans. American jails and American prisons. I'm sure that ICE facilities are probably much better than the American prison system. I wouldn't doubt that. Okay, so moving to Eric Daugherty, serial immigration fraudster working as a Minnesota corrections officer, has been arrested. Well, of course he has. They have illegal immigrants working as corrections officers in Minnesota. Unbelievable. Okay, so this release date was from today. U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services Operation Twin Shield is yielding yet more results with the arrest of a Minnesota correctional officer and an AWOL National Guard member masquerading as a U.S. citizen, despite having no legal status in the United States. The serial fraudster was identified as part of the major enforcement operation that targeted suspected immigration fraud in the Minneapolis-St. Paul area last fall. Through the joint efforts of the Department of Homeland Security agencies, USCIS, and U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, Morris Brown, a 45-year-old illegal alien from Liberia, was arrested on January 15th in Minneapolis by ICE for multiple violations of U.S. immigration law, including overstaying his student visa and making false claims to U.S. citizenship. And this is what USCIS Director Joseph Edlow said, quote, Operation Twin Shield continues to deliver results as the Department of Homeland Security relentlessly pursues those who seek to cheat our immigration system. This alien tried every trick in the book to remain in the United States after losing legal status. We will use every tool at our disposal to ensure he faces justice for his many violations of the law. Brown entered the U.S. in 2014, that was the last time he entered, on a non-immigrant student visa that was terminated in 2015 because he failed to enroll in a full course of study. He didn't enroll full-time into a university or a community college or what have you. Despite not having legal status, he joined the Pennsylvania Army National Guard in 2014, but went AWOL the next year. He was ultimately apprehended and discharged from the military under other than honorable conditions in 2022. Brown applied for a green card in 2020 under the Liberian Refugee Immigration Fairness Program. USCIS denied his application due to misrepresentations, including his failure to disclose prior military service and his false claim to U.S. citizenship. In 2024, in another commission of fraud, he applied to naturalize as a U.S. citizen based on prior military service. Good grief, man. This dude's quite a character. During Operation Twin Shield, USCIS investigators looking into Brown's application for citizenship found evidence of marriage fraud and prior instances where he falsely claimed to be a U.S. citizen in official documents. They also learned he was working as a corrections officer for the state of Minnesota. Good grief, man, there's just no end to it. Despite having no legal immigration status by claiming to be a U.S. citizen, USCIS referred his case to ICE, and Brown now faces removal proceedings and potential criminal prosecution for immigration fraud, false claims to U.S. citizenship, and related offenses. And most likely he did all of this in Minnesota. It did say that he joined the Pennsylvania National Guard, so he wasn't in Minnesota the entire time. However, it wouldn't surprise me that the whole marriage fraud and all those other forms of fraud he probably did in the state of Minnesota, because obviously they weren't going to arrest him. They weren't going to prosecute him for anything. In fact, they gave him a job as a corrections officer, even though he's an illegal freaking immigrant with a ton of fraud in his background. And moving to Homeland Security, 9 hours ago, Connecticut sanctuary politicians released a criminal illegal alien pedo from jail. Christian Espinoza Sarango, a criminal illegal alien from Ecuador, was charged for assault, illegal conduct with a child, and enticing minors with a computer in North Haven, Connecticut on December 19th of last year. On December 23rd, ICE lodged an arrest detainer asking local law enforcement to not release Espinoza Sarango without notification. The detainer was not honored, and he was released into Connecticut streets. On February 13th, ICE officers arrested this public safety threat at large instead of safely transferring him into ICE custody. Thanks to Immigration and Customs Enforcement, he will never walk America's streets again. Thank God. And no thanks to freaking Connecticut. Of course not, man. They just want the crime. They just want everybody to be a victim. I think that's what they want. I think they're just obsessed with victimhood. You know, everybody's got to be a victim of something. There's always got to be something wrong with the world. U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, Houston women accused of kidnapping and torturing a 12-year-old girl in forced labor case. Tanya Yvette Garcia and Brenda Mariana Garcia were indicted for allegedly kidnapping a 12-year-old girl and physically abusing and torturing her to get her to perform manual labor following an investigation by ICE in Houston, HSI Houston special agents, and the MC Texas Sheriff, Montgomery County Sheriff's Office. The defendants each face up to life in prison and a $250,000 maximum fine. So there you go, a real couple of winners there for kidnapping and forced labor. These people are insane. And let's go to Border Hawk exclusive. ICE nails illegal alien rideshare drivers in Florida during Operation Liftoff. You know, get it? LYFT, Liftoff. Federal authorities are targeting illegal aliens who drive for rideshare companies like Uber and Lyft in the state of Florida. Now, I don't know if they're doing this in Florida, but I do remember that it was a couple of years ago that I learned about this, that up in New York City, the illegal immigrants that were having trouble trying to find some way to make a little bit of money, there were organizations that were reaching out to the community that sympathizes with illegal immigrants living in New York City, and they were signing up for Uber and Lyft, and I think most popularly was the Uber Eats, the DoorDash, and they were giving them the account of just some random American citizen with their knowledge, by the way. They would sign up for rideshare, or they would sign up for what have you, and then they would essentially just give that account over to the illegal immigrants so they can use it. So I remember that happening in New York City. So evidently, I don't know if that's exactly what's happening here as well. Sounds like it might be. But anyway, so ICE has been spearheading Operation Liftoff, a multi-agency effort to crack down on illegal drivers in this Sunshine State. Border Hawk joined ICE for the third iteration of Operation Liftoff, which unfolded on January 17th in Cape Canaveral. Dozens of agents, officers, and deputies from a variety of federal, state, and local law enforcement agencies gathered for a pre-dawn raid on parking lots at Port Canaveral, where scores of drivers were waiting for cruise ship passengers to disembark. Marshal Vliet, supervisory detention and deportation officer at the ICE Orlando field office, led a pre-op huddle during which he stressed the importance of safety and consensual encounters with subjects. Okay, so there's a bunch of quotes. So I'm not going to read all of this because we actually have the video here, and it's damn near 10 minutes. So let's have a look at this. This ought to be very interesting.
What's your name? You mind stepping out? Listen, I'm not going to answer again. Hang out over there. Yeah, it's in my I don't care.
Good morning. Thank you for coming out. I appreciate it. This is Liftoff 3.0, third iteration of this. So what we're going to do is we'll move into the parking lot as last time, sort of flood the lot with the vehicles. So the first one's in, go all the way to the back of the lot so the guys can pull in behind you. Everybody just get out, start making contact, consensual contact. If the drivers do not want to speak to you, they do not have to. All right, so if they pull away, let them pull away. The Broward County Sheriff's Office is here. If they conduct a PC violation, they will take action. If those individuals are foreign born, go ahead and give me a call, and then we'll take them into custody. Officer safety is paramount, so make sure you guys are taking good positions, good tactical positions. You don't want to be standing in front of a vehicle. We all know what happens when that happens. So make sure you guys are taking good positions of advantage. And make sure you guys are conducting yourself professionally. Obviously, we all have the warrior mindset, but we still want to be professionals. All right, so no
warrior mindset.
Folks. Let's treat everybody with respect, okay?
Border Hawk, monitoring the situation.
Federal authorities are targeting illegal aliens who drive for rideshare companies like Uber and Lyft in the state of Florida.
Why is Uber and Lyft allowing this?
Customs
Why aren't they
Enforcement
vetting?
has been spearheading Operation Liftoff, a multi-agency effort to crack down on illegal drivers in the Sunshine State. Border Hawk joined ICE for the third iteration of Operation Liftoff, which unfolded on January 17th in Cape Canaveral. Dozens of agents, officers, and deputies from a variety of federal, state, and local law enforcement agencies gathered for a pre-dawn raid on parking lots at Port Canaveral, where scores of drivers were waiting for cruise ship passengers to disembark. Just after 6 a.m., a caravan of law enforcement vehicles, accompanied by a detainee transport bus, descended on several lots full of cars and SUVs with individuals waiting or sleeping inside. Officers immediately began knocking on windows, questioning drivers, and detaining foreigners who were in the U.S. illegally, racking up roughly a dozen arrests before daybreak. Several individuals attempted to evade by driving away, but they were stopped for moving violations and subsequently questioned by Brevard County Sheriff's Office deputies. While speaking with drivers who were in the U.S. legally, officers learned that some illegals had adopted new tactics to avoid law enforcement in the wake of previous executions of Operation Liftoff. Legally present drivers resent illegal aliens who steal coveted fares and reportedly even use illicit software to cut in line ahead of drivers waiting for new rides.
Oh, wow.
Illegal drivers were reportedly camped out in parking lots of local restaurants and gas stations, so plans were made for small teams to begin peeling away at random to avoid detection by drivers who communicate with each other via group chats and messaging apps.
We're gonna go right 3D. Right now we're headed over to a nearby lot, local convenience store. We got intel during this morning's checks of the folks. We got intel that they kind of split with a group chat as to where they are. So we're gonna go check out this other spot that they kind of let us know that there's other folks at, and see what happens.
All right, rock and roll.
While en route to a nearby convenience store, our team came across a minivan that had been stopped by a Brevard County Sheriff's Office deputy at a highway on-ramp. The driver was determined to be an illegal alien from Colombia, and he was taken into custody on the spot.
Gotta love Florida. We cooperate with ICE down here.
This is us, though.
Yep, this is. They got somebody right here.
Upon arrival at a racetrack gas station, we observed officers and agents questioning drivers in the lot, and several more arrests were made. We then made our way back to the port, where we learned a detainee had physically resisted officers before he was handcuffed and shackled. Another target managed to escape by running into a swampy area, forcing officers to dodge alligators while pursuing him on foot.
Oh, yikes.
Brevard County Sheriff's Office
Alligators,
helicopter
no
was
joke.
deployed to assist in searching for the absconder, and he eventually surrendered after roughly an hour on the loose.
All right, so we're up to 16 in custody. Right now we have 15 males, 1 female. Brevard County Sheriff's Office is responding to a runner, so they're going to try to track that one down. Yeah, so some of the intel that they gathered indicated that they have learned from this in the past, so they've been staging at alternate locations, and they're receiving text messages from people in the lot who are letting them know, hey, ICE is here, hang out, stay away. And then, so they've learned our patterns. And we want to make sure that we're not letting unlicensed drivers hang out around Florida roadways. It's very unsafe, especially when you take into consideration the Indian truck driver who killed those poor people on the turnpike.
Yeah, sure did.
He was licensed in another state. So this is a double-edged sword for us. It gives us the ability to not only enforce immigration law, but ensure that we're protecting the Florida roadways.
All right, so I'll go ahead and cut it there. I'll repost this. There's a direct link to my profile down below in the description if you want to take a look at that. Also, let me grab... Good grief, that was a long post for Border Hawk. So it's at Border Hawk News. You can also find it there. That was, oh, here, let me just grab the time. It was 9 hours ago at 11:51 a.m. Because like most accounts that are on the X platform, if you're not familiar with the X platform, a lot of a lot of accounts, they just post all day long. So it helps if you get the exact time if you prefer to just go directly to theirs to have a look at the rest of that video. We'll move on to CBP. Securing our border. The Puebla Tree Gap is closed. For years, the Otay Mountain Wilderness in San Diego, California was plagued by dangerous cartel enforcers and bandits operating near the Puebla Tree Border Gap. As recently as 2024, these criminal organizations patrolled near the international border, ensuring cartel plaza payments were made before crossing. They exploited these easily traversable gaps to cross into the U.S., where they would rob, kidnap, and extort anyone they encountered. Today, that has changed. Thanks to the relentless efforts of our U.S. Border Patrol Chief SDC San Diego agents, our partnerships, and the strategic infrastructure improvements, the Puebla Tree Border Gap is now closed. We've sent a clear message. These criminal activities are no longer tolerated, and cartels are not welcome here. Our commitment to securing our communities and protecting those along the border remains unwavering. Let's have a look. Damn, dude, that's some rough terrain. Man, no wonder it took them that long to seal that up. Yeah, that's some crazy terrain. All right, Homeland Security. Great policies lead to great results. Between 1.3 million to 4 million illegal immigrant households will be unenrolled from Medicaid. This program was never designed to be utilized by illegal aliens. Americans are done fronting the bill for people who have no business being here. We are not stopping until we fix the multi-generational exploitation that our nation has undergone. Up to 4 million illegal alien households removed from Medicaid. Between 1.3 and 4 million Medicaid and CHIP enrollees living in a household with a non-citizen could disenroll due to public charge and other immigration-related fears. Total Medicaid and CHIP enrollees who live in a household with at least one non-citizen totals 13.4 million. That is a lot. And of course, they've got the stats down here, including citizen children and adults and other children. So that is fantastic news, especially for the taxpayers. You know, maybe we won't see our national deficit skyrocket quite as fast now that we've got all of them pulled off of Medicaid. And very good news. Rep. Lizzie Fletcher, Democrat. The Energy Commerce Oversight Subcommittee recently held a hearing on fraud in Medicare and Medicaid, an important area for oversight. But it became clear that the real goal was to give the Trump administration a pretext to continue attacks on communities across the country. I called this out.
Our purpose on the Oversight and Investigation Subcommittee is to protect our communities, to protect the rights of our citizens, and to make sure that what we see in the executive branch and beyond is not overreaching and certainly is not violating the rights of Americans. And I think it's fair to say, in face of the lawlessness that we are seeing across the country right now, that Congress as a whole has failed to conduct necessary oversight over the last year, ceding Congress's authority to the
Oh, yeah, because they conducted so much oversight during the Biden administration. You really believe that?
Executive branch and rubber stamping the president's agenda, even when it's unlawful and even when it's unconstitutional. And I'm concerned from some of the comments that I've heard from this hearing already today, as I've been following it, that this hearing is designed to support the Trump administration's use of claims of fraud in state programs, including Medicaid.
Including the 4 million illegal immigrants that we just discovered that have been yanked off of Medicaid. Is that who you're talking about, lady?
And Medicare, to recklessly deploy ICE agents.
They're such bad liars, man.
To cities and states to cut necessary funding and to make fraud prevention and detection more difficult rather than less difficult.
Yeah, because she cares so much with what's going on in Minnesota, right? And I'm just at the point now that if a Democrat is going to be as vague as she is, just saying, well, the Trump administration is breaking the law, the end. They're completely full of shit, man. I'm just left with just the assumption that she just literally lied about everything. She just made all that shit up out of thin air that, you know, she really doesn't seem to know what the hell she's talking about. DOJ rapid response. First, these salaciously insane accusations are in the library unredacted. Okay, so let's go to this first. So from Brian Allen, Major Bombshell, Ted Lieu says the full unreleased Epstein files show Donald Trump R-wording children. That's what's being hidden. That's why the files stay sealed. That's why there are no arrests. Release everything. Let the truth come out or resign. And look, I've said this so many times over and over again. Trump is mentioned in the Epstein files between 10 and 20 times before the year 2015. So prior to 2015, he was only mentioned in there, depending on what source you're looking at. Some sources say only 10 times. Other sources say 20 times. But after he announced that he was running for president of the United States, he magically was included in the Epstein files, according to the New York Times, over 30,000 times. I think it's like 36,000 times that he's mentioned in the Epstein files, many, if not most of which, were mentions by Jeffrey Epstein himself, because he emailed all kinds of people constantly bragging about how he knew Trump and at some point, and he was a member of Mar-a-Lago and all this, that, and the other. But anyway, let's hear what Ted Lieu has to say, because he's not deranged and psychotic.
Are Republicans so interested in Bill and Hillary Clinton? Is because they're trying
to distract. He does have a pretty vivid imagination, though.
The fact that Donald Trump is in the Epstein files thousands and thousands of times. In those files, there's
after he announced he was running for president, of course,
of Donald Trump
was from Jeffrey Epstein himself.
Children, of Donald Trump threatening to kill children. So I encourage your press to go look at these allegations, and I'm highly disturbed that.
See, he says that he encourages the press to go because they don't have the credentials, and that's what they're going to end up saying. Well, we can't look at it because it's all redacted, and he's going to say, yes, exactly right, it's all redacted. So it's really convenient because really any name that's redacted, you can use your imagination and insert literally any name you want. You can put any name you want there and accuse them of exactly that. Such as an email that was redacted and the message said, your youngest child last night was fantastic, Jeffrey. I can't wait to meet again so we can do that again. And the name is unredacted. And then I say, wow, I can't believe Barack Obama would do a thing like that.
Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche just got the law wrong. Yesterday, he said, essentially, that it is not a crime to party with Jeffrey Epstein. Well, that's actually not correct. If Jeffrey Epstein was human trafficking minors for these sex parties, and you show up and patronize the establishment at that party, yes, you're guilty, because patronizing is part of the law, of the federal sex trafficking law. So
yeah, but see, here's another thing. Isn't Trump like not on the flight logs not a single time either? So when he's having all these sex parties at, which I'm assuming he's talking about Epstein Island, if he's not on any of the flight logs, then evidently he wasn't there.
General Todd Blanche just got that wrong, which maybe explains why they aren't investigating all these folks, including Donald Trump. He needs to read the law and investigate these people. He also needs to resign.
And look, here's another major problem that little Ted Lieu has. If Donald Trump had that damning evidence against him in the Epstein files that had him literally R-wording children, it was written black and white in those Epstein files, why the hell would have Trump signed the Epstein Files Transparency Act in the first place? Remember, it had to go to his desk for him to sign it into law, and if he did not sign it into law, then nobody would have seen anything. Those 6 million pages that they released, nobody would have seen any of it. It all would have just been kept in the dark. So if Trump has all of that evidence against him, thousands of pieces of evidence against him, why the fuck would he have even signed it into law to begin with?
Not only for not knowing the law,
of course he can't answer that.
But a massive, not only screw up, but the biggest privacy violation in history. They release a lot of...
So what I think that he's doing, I think he's trying to get ahead of the Bill and Hillary Clinton testifying before Congress. I don't know if they're actually going to make that televised or not. I believe that they absolutely should, because the Epstein Files Transparency Act says that everything must be released to the public except the victims' names. So any testimony that Bill and Hillary Clinton are going to give to Congress, we're privy to that information because we're the public. It has to be made public. And also, I believe it was Hillary Clinton, but I think also Bill Clinton also chimed in and said that they want their testimony to be made public. They want cameras to be in the room. So I'm not sure if they're going to. I have a feeling that they're not going to, because of course they're not going to. You know, that would just be our luck that we won't be able to watch that unfold. But I think he's just trying to get ahead of this because, you know, what are they going to say? Are they going to say any damning information? I think they're just going to flim-flam their way all the way through whatever testimony they're going to give anyway. But I just have a feeling that because Bill and Hillary Clinton's, their interviews are coming up in just a week or two, so it's right around the corner. Just seems like awful convenient timing for him to dispose of his vivid imagination.
Just violated the privacy of these girls. It is uncalled for what they did. The one thing that they...
And another thing, we've got all of these Epstein victims. They've already spoken to the press. They've already talked to the cameras. They were in Congress when the Epstein Files Transparency Act was signed. They were also there when Pam Bondi was giving her testimony last week at the Judicial Oversight Committee. Why wouldn't they just go in front of the cameras and just confirm, yeah, Donald Trump did XYZ to me? And they haven't done that. It's almost as if he wasn't even there.
They could not do under this law was to invade the privacy of these women now who were girls at the time who were victims of sex trafficking. Also, he met with Ghislaine Maxwell, moved her to minimum security prison, and then got a puppy for her. So for all those reasons, he's just got to leave the department.
That's also like brain dead nonsense, because there was no puppy that was given to her. She was moved to another prison, and at some point when she was at the prison, there was it was a what are those dogs called? Like those aid dogs or whatever. The licensed companion dogs. You know what I'm talking about? They had one of those on the premises that was visiting other inmates, and she asked the officials if she could spend any time with it, and they gave her 30 minutes to pet this dog. She spent 30 minutes with a service animal that wasn't even hers, wasn't given to her. I don't even think it was a puppy. I think it was some full-grown service animal that she spent like probably not even a half an hour with. She just spent a little bit of time with it. And of course, the Democrats are saying, oh my God, Donald Trump gave her a puppy forever. She has a puppy living with her now. So they're just a bunch of morons, a bunch of lunatics. Of course, they're just trying to make up a bunch of fake news, because that's really all that the Democrats do these days. And they've been doing that for well over a decade at this point. They've got nothing left. All they have at this point is just gaslighting, just making up shit that doesn't even exist. And anytime they throw out any accusations, it's always as blanketed could get. They can never give any data, no sources, no statistics, no instances of anything happening. And frankly, it's really frustrating. All right, so Ohio Republican Party, that is what we've got next. Yikes, it's time to retire this guy for good. And from Town Hall, Sherrod Brown starts stumbling around aimlessly like Joe Biden when asked about his cratering union support. He literally spins around in circles while his handlers grab his arms to direct him. This is rough.
Hi, Sherrod Brown. I have a question. Sorry.
No, can you please stop?
You recently lost your fourth union endorsement. Is it because you've been selling them out across the 50 years of your career?
Thank you.
Hi,
I'd be like, lady, don't touch me. That's assault. I can't believe you just assaulted me, lady. I got that on camera, by the way. So anyway, I'm not familiar with Sherrod Brown. I believe I've heard his name somewhere, but anyway, yeah, I guess he might be just kind of losing his marbles upstairs. From Eric Daugherty, breaking: the Kansas legislature just overrode the Democrat governor's veto and enacted a law that bans men from women's restrooms and also defines male and female at birth and requires accurate listing of male or female on licenses and birth certificates. Both the Senate and the House have now voted to override Governor Kelly's veto. Massive win for sanity.
Good morning. Yeah, Kansas lawmakers recently passed this bathroom bill. What it means is
it's hilarious. They put it right next to a freaking bathroom.
The restroom associated with your
news
sex
cracks me up
at birth.
sometimes.
So if you were born male, you'd use men's restroom. If you were born female, you'd use the women's
As if
bathroom.
we've never seen public bathrooms before.
This makes it illegal for those who are transgender to use a public bathroom associated with the gender that they associate with right now.
Yeah.
So those who support this bill say it's all about protecting women. They don't want someone who was born a male but now identifies as...
Well, look, don't they have an app out there? I don't remember the name of it, but I believe that some I don't know if a transgender activist organization or whatever, somebody put together an app that's essentially Google Maps, and it gives you all of these facilities that have that third bathroom, you know, the family bathroom that has like the changing table or whatever. They have these maps that have all of the facilities in your city where you can go and you can patronize those businesses and you can use that bathroom. You don't have to use the men's or the women's. You can use that third one, the family one that only one individual at a time can go in there.
Female using the women's restroom. But those against this bill say it discriminates against the transgender population.
Which is less than 1% of the
Kelly
population, by the way.
vetoed this bill last Friday, but yesterday the Kansas Senate voted 31-9 along party lines to override her veto. And
31 to
today,
9, damn.
the Kansas House will vote
Because it's
as
lunacy.
to whether to override the governor's veto, and they have the votes to get it passed. Now, if it's passed by the House today and becomes law, a trans person who is caught using a public restroom opposite their born gender could face up to a $1,000 fine and criminal charges.
Okay.
Kansas Attorney General Chris Kobach indicated that he will prosecute, as he doesn't think that many trans people will be able to get away with sneaking into an opposite-sex bathroom.
It sounds like that the news doesn't really like this that much.
Including in this very building, in the Capitol, there are cases where it's not like that. It's very obvious that the individual in the women's room is a biological male.
Well, yeah, exactly.
That we have by implementing this.
And some people even make the argument that that opens the door wide open for predators, child predators, to go into the bathroom and say, "Oh no, it's okay. I'm a woman. I'm totally a woman. You know, this beard is totally feminine."
Type of legislation, this discriminatory legislation, where it need not be in the economic impact it would have for future opportunities for our state.
Now, this bill also requires that all Kansas birth certificates and driver's licenses reflect the person's gender at birth. So any birth certificates or
Which
driver's
chromosome
licenses
do you
that
have?
have been altered and
XX or
changed
XY?
and sent out to trans people, they will have to be reissued. So we'll see. That is only if this bill becomes law. Again, the House voting on it today. If it passes, it'll be the new law in Kansas.
Well, it sounds
guys.
like it passed.
All right, Matt, thank you.
I mean, isn't it the Democrats that once told us to trust the science, follow the science, and that's all we're doing. We're simply following the science. If you have a Y chromosome, you're a man. That's it. It's that simple. It's not difficult. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. This is genuinely one of the most disgusting statements I've ever seen issued by an American official. And if you missed this on my episode the other day, so Congressman Randy Fine dropped this bombshell on X/Twitter. If they force us to choose, the choice between dogs and Muslims is not a difficult one. So that was a banger. Got 44 million views. It kind of went a little viral, in case you didn't notice. 134,000 likes, got 21,000 comments. The Democrats, of course, they were absolutely going ballistic over this. Everybody was just given like the most emotional answer they could possibly come up with, including AOC. So she said, it should not stop shocking us that the Republican Party openly embraces this. Fine should be censured and stripped of committees. To ignore this is to accept and normalize it. So if you watched my episode from the other day, I pointed out Eric Swalwell, he had an overly emotional statement, very similar to AOC's. And then I pointed out the fact that he has a dog. He has a Labrador, and he takes a lot of pictures of his Labrador because he loves it very much. So if push came to shove, if he had to choose between immigrant Muslims that he doesn't even know, strangers, or would he choose his own pet? Which is he going to choose? Are you going to choose your dog, or are you going to choose just random Muslim immigrants that you don't even know? And by the way, the context behind this was that some Muslim left-wing activist in New York City suggested to Mayor Mamdani that all dogs in New York City should be banned from being indoor dogs. So anybody who has an indoor dog in New York City, they would essentially be breaking the law by having an indoor dog, because apparently Muslims, they don't like indoor dogs. Apparently it's because they're filthy and they scare away the like angels or something. I don't even know, but yeah, apparently they don't like indoor dogs, and they want to put a stop to it in New York City, which I think it's pretty rich coming from AOC, because check this out. So I've dropped this. You would choose Muslim strangers over your own fur baby? Take a look at that. AOC's got a dog, and I bet that's an indoor dog. I would not be surprised if that were an indoor dog. So I go on to say, even I don't believe that for a second. You won't even open your home to a single homeless immigrant of any race, culture, creed, or religious background. You live in New York City. Are you okay with keeping your dog outside? Nope. I would think not. Probably not. So anyway, I did the same thing, like I said, with Eric Swalwell the other day. Any of these Democrats that are freaking out over that statement, I bet probably, I don't know, let's say 80% of them probably have an indoor dog. And like I said, if push came to shove, they're going to go with the pet, because they're Americans and we love our pets very, very much. Certainly more than just strangers that we don't even know. Okay, so let's move on to Rapid Response 47. This is during the White House press secretary's press conference today that happened. So I'm just going to go and just play one after the next. I mean, there's really no sense in reading all of the quotes because that's essentially what all of the text is at the top. It's just quotes of what she's already saying in the video. So we'll just start from the top.
Democrats are the reason that the Department of Homeland Security is currently shut down. They have chosen to act against the American people
simply voted
for
no.
political reasons. And now we have FEMA
To fund
workers,
DHS,
the men and women of the United States Coast Guard, men and women of TSA who keep our airports moving, who will be working.
Oh, yeah. You know, you might as well play the Democrats' game and also mention people of color because there's persons of color that are also in these agencies as well.
Without paychecks for no good reason.
But the Democrats are horrifically withholding their paychecks
with Donald Trump, and the president thinks that is irresponsible and despicable. He wants the government to be open. We've been engaged in good faith negotiations with the Democrats. Last night they sent over a counter proposal that frankly was very unserious, and we hope they get serious very soon because Americans are going to be impacted by this.
Well, yeah, it's just like the government was shut down for 43 days because they had a bunch of brain-dead nonsense that they were trying to get the Republicans to cave to. So this one, she's talking about housing and mortgages and how it's looking great, even though that I would push back against that pretty strongly because it ain't so great out here.
The American dream is buying a home. And that is finally becoming more affordable under this president. This past week, it was announced the annual mortgage cost for a new home has fallen by $4,000 so far under President Trump.
Okay, I don't think she's going to say it, but I would really like her to say, what is the average price for a home in America today? It fell by $4,000. That sounds like a lot. Last I checked, the average house in America was like $380,000. And it did fall by a little bit over the last couple of years. I think at some point it was like up near $420,000. But still, it's damn near $400,000 for the average house, something that only roughly 15% of Americans can afford.
After rising by roughly $15,000 under Joe Biden. As a result,
did it raise a lot more than that? Are you serious?
Has reached a 4-year best following recent bold action by the president to make home ownership more attainable for American families, not large Wall Street corporate institutional investors.
Okay, that I'm very happy with.
At the same time, national median rents have fallen to a 4-year low and have declined for 6 consecutive months.
Give us the numbers.
The annual rental cost for a new rental unit has fallen nearly $100 so far under President Trump, after rising more than $3,000 under Joe Biden. And many are crediting that to the president's deportation.
Okay, well, hold on. Those numbers aren't exactly accurate. Rent didn't raise by $3,000 a month. She's saying that rent fell by $100. That's monthly. Now, for the rent cost to have fallen by $3,000, maybe she just misspoke. That had to have been for the whole year. There's no way that it raised by $3,000 for a month
Efforts
under
to
Biden.
remove illegal aliens from our communities and therefore from housing that should be used for American citizens.
Yes, that absolutely made a significant dent in the rent going down because the vast majority of illegal immigrants were renting. They weren't purchasing houses, they were renting. And with, over 2 million at this point have self-deported, plus the 600 some odd thousand that DHS or that Homeland Security has deported, I'm sure we're inching up toward 3 million at this point. And yeah, that's definitely going to put a good dent into the rent. All right, Department of State, and that's from their account. And let's see what this covers. Cuba, talking about the Cuba regime.
I think as Secretary Rubio has articulated and the president himself, we obviously want to see flourishing and prosperous democracies all over the world, especially in our own hemisphere.
Our own backyard,
dictating any actions the United States may take to get there.
My state's only 90 miles away from Cuba.
Of course, that's in the United States' best interest to have Cuba be a truly free and prosperous democracy. Unfortunately, right now, that is not the case. They are a regime that is falling. Their country is collapsing, and that's why we believe it's in their best interest to make very dramatic changes very soon, and we'll see what they decide to do.
Well, yeah, the Trump administration definitely knows that Cuba is in a very precarious situation right now, especially with Iran. Their economy is essentially in free fall. Their inflation has doubled over the last year, and they've been cut off from Venezuela and Venezuelan oil. So, yeah, I would say Cuba is getting quite isolated. Plus, their other major ally, Russia, they've been tied up with the war in Ukraine for the last few years. And Russia has gotten to the point where I came across an article that Russia, it's been reported that Russia's selling their metal gold. They're selling physical gold to help keep up with the war funding because they're running out of money, apparently. So they're getting to the point where they have to start selling off their stocks of precious metals in order to keep funding the war. So sounds like Cuba might be pretty well on their own at this point. So it probably would be in their best interest to start relaxing their regime just a little bit, to say the least. All right, so from this one, let's see. She's talking about the Board of Peace, the situation with Gaza and Israel. So let's hear this.
Tomorrow, President Trump will host a Board of Peace meeting at the Donald J. Trump Institute of Peace, where he will announce that member states have pledged more than $5 billion towards the Gaza humanitarian and reconstruction efforts.
That was very nice
and
of
have
them,
also committed
they didn't have to do
thousands
that.
of personnel to the International Stabilization Force and local police to maintain security and peace for Gazans.
So President Trump essentially brokered $5 billion worth of funding to go directly to Gaza. And what about the left? What about the progressive left? Not so much as a freaking thank you, because President Trump is freeing Palestine, and they really don't like that. And the press secretary previews the Board of Peace meeting. This video is a little bit longer, so perhaps you might,
if you recall,
might
at
add
the
some
first
extra info
meeting
to
when
this.
we were in Davos, Jared Kushner did provide a very detailed PowerPoint presentation for the vision of Gaza, the reconstruction and the humanitarian efforts, of course, providing local security on the ground. That will be part of the discussion tomorrow, is how can we maintain security? First, you must achieve security to get to prosperity, which is sort of the second part of this plan. So you'll be hearing more about that tomorrow, but I would just point out $5 billion worth of investment. We're talking about reconstructing Gaza. I remember when those words came from the president's lips
that's $5,000 million.
in the East Room
That's a lot of
many
money.
months ago, and all of you in the press were bewildered at how the president could have such an ambitious
could he do
goal
that?
of rebuilding Gaza, which is obviously a place that has been just turmoiled by violence and chaos for many, many years. But we are well underway in doing that, and it's a historic accomplishment for this president.
Yeah, and the press is beside themselves. They don't even know how to report that. Wait, Trump freed Palestine? Trump is freeing Gaza? And not only that, but he's helping to funnel more than $5 billion worth of funding to help rebuild it. How are they going to report that? Well, they're just going to report that $5 billion is being sent to them, and then they're going to do some homework and figure out like which countries. They're going to go above and beyond to try to cut Trump's name out of anything and everything they possibly can, including the fact that he's having the meeting at the Trump Institute of Peace or whatever she said. Of course, they're not going to report that. Anyway, so this is going to be, looks like one more on the Board of Peace. This actually might be a duplicate.
If you recall, at the first meeting when we were in Davos, Jared Kushner did.
Yeah, that's just a duplicate. We'll move on. So for this one, talking about Iran, ongoing
The president has
issues
always
with
been
Iran.
very clear, though, with respect to Iran or any country around the world. Diplomacy is always his first option, and Iran would be very wise to make a deal with President Trump and with this administration. He's talking to many people. Of course, his national security team, first and foremost, and you know who the members of that team are. And this is something, obviously, the president takes seriously. He's always thinking about what's in the best interests of the United States of America, of our military, of the American people, and that's how he makes decisions with respect to military action of any kind.
Yeah, that he is. I'm not sure what his in-game scenario would look like for Iran. I mean, of course, for it to return to a similar way that it was. When was that? In like the 1970s or 1960s, when it was a much more free society. Press secretary, the president has always been clear with respect to Iran. Diplomacy is always his first option. Is this going to be another duplicate?
Well,
Not
there's
sure.
many reasons and arguments that one could make for a strike against Iran. The president had a very successful operation as commander-in-chief with Operation Midnight Hammer, as you know, as you just said, totally obliterated Iran's nuclear facilities. The president has always been very clear, though, with respect to Iran or any country around the world. Diplomacy is always his first option, and Iran would be very wise to make a deal with President Trump and with this administration. He's talking to many people. Of course, his national security team, first and foremost, and you know who the members of that team are. And this is something, obviously, the president takes seriously. He's always thinking about what's in the best interests of the United States of America, of our military, of the American people, and that's how he makes decisions with respect to military action.
Okay, all right. I think we did already get some of that, but not all of it. More talks with Iran.
Where do things stand after yesterday's talks?
I think you heard from the administration and the State Department yesterday that there was a little bit of progress made, but we're still very far apart on some issues. I believe the Iranians are expected to come back to us with some more detail in the next couple of weeks, and so the president will continue to watch how this plays out.
Okay, well, they're still engaging in diplomacy at least. And we've got this regarding the Russia-Ukraine war, and the president views the entire situation as unfair. I mean, that doesn't sound good.
I think the president would respond to that by saying he does not think it's fair that thousands of Ukrainians are losing their lives, and Russians too, in this deadly war. And that's why the president and his team have committed a tremendous amount of time and energy in bringing this war that is very far away from the United States of America, but nevertheless, this is a president of peace. And so he's committed a tremendous amount of time and energy to bringing this war to an end. Just yesterday, there was another round of trilateral talks between the U.S., Russia, and Ukraine. There was meaningful progress made in both parties. Both sides agreed to update their respective leaders and to continue to work towards a peace deal together. So there will be another round of talks in the future. But I think the president views this entire situation as very unfair, not just for Russians and Ukrainians who have lost their lives, but also for the American people and the American taxpayer who were footing the bill for this war effort before President Trump put a stop to it.
Over $100 billion worth.
Remind everyone around the world that the United States is still selling weapons to NATO that are then being sent to Ukraine in their defense of their freedom in their borders.
Yes, they are. And where's NATO getting that money from? Well, they're buying energy from Russia. That's where they're getting their money from. And they're taking, they're selling energy to Russia. Russia's taking that money and they're using it to funnel or to fund their side of the war machine. And of course, the United States have given Ukraine over $100 billion worth of funding for them to continue funding their war machine. And it seems like Europe, they're just playing both sides. They're financing both sides of the war, for crying out loud. And I'm sure Russia and Ukraine, their beef has got to go back decades, if not freaking centuries. And I'm sure it's beyond our understanding, which is why we shouldn't have even gotten involved in the first place. And we're going to move on to the next topic. This is President Trump during the 100th anniversary of Black History Month, the event that he held at the White House today.
Well, I want to thank you all and welcome you to the White House on this very special occasion. It is indeed. I've been at every one of them, and we celebrate the 100th anniversary of Black History Month. That's a big deal. 100.
Big 100.
Wow. That's sort of special. The 100th. That's about like 150
good round number.
But 200's better, right? 100's better. Well, I want to thank you all.
Okay, so that was the intro, and I've got a few others just like from the press secretary. We've got this one. Must-watch DC resident for Lisa Cook, who lost her grandson to murder, thanks President Trump for his work to make America safe again in an incredible speech at the White House Black History Month reception.
One thing I like about him, he keeps it real just like Grandma. I appreciate that because I can trust him because he tells exactly how he feels and what he thinks. Thank God for this president. I am filled, my cup runneth over. Because he allowed his constituents, his people, to come to my house to interview me, to talk about the murder of my grandson. It seemed like nobody cared. I'm an advocate for murder. I marched, I rallied, I pulled out other families in the District of Columbia that had murders and did not have answers. Ooh. We marched and we rallied, and nobody heard me, Democrats. Get mad at me.
Uh-oh.
Until this Republican.
Yeah, they won't listen.
Send his constituents, his people out there to interview me in my home. Have you ever heard of a thing? Then they invited me twice before Congress to testify for the beautiful bill that's going to change crime in the district. If you kill somebody, okay, you take a life, you do life. Just that simple. If you do a harsh crime, you do harsh time. Just that simple. And then we need National Guard, and which we did years ago. He brought it on. I love him. I don't want to hear nothing you got to say about that racist stuff. And don't be looking at me on the news hating on me because I'm standing up for somebody that deserves to be stayed up for. Get off the man's back. Let him do his job. He's doing the right thing. Back up off of him. And Grandma said it.
Grandma said it. Hell of a speech. Yeah, I mean, he's done a hell of a lot more for the black community than any friggin' Democrat president has ever done. And like by that, I mean ever. They've never done nearly as much as President Trump's done. All right, so the president welcomes to the podium a small business owner seeing the benefits of the Trump economy.
I can't do anything first but say to God be the glory. I have no business being here other than him having me here. And so, yeah, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to preach. I'm going to settle myself. Thank you so much for inviting me and having me here. It's such an honor to be here today. Hebrews 11:1. People ask me all the time, why did I even open a business? Why did I even call it Hebrews 11:1? Hebrews 11:1 is my very favorite scripture. Now faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen. That scripture has walked with me, has grown me from a little girl on up. Not having no longer my mother here, no longer having my father here, my husband not having his mother and his father here. We opened Hebrews 11:1 with no funding, no money, no big family investors, no business loans, didn't have great credit. It was us and faith in God. That was 7 years ago. But I ran that business with just myself and one employee. Then here comes no tax on tips. I was able to hire 7 more employees.
Oh, wow.
Just by what she did. Not only that, I was able to open a second location on our college campus. Things are just going off simply because having now faith. And so I love the fact of that scripture. Now, I say all of that I'm trying to stick to my little written down thing that I wrote. I don't know how to do that so well. But as a small business
well, President
owner,
Trump doesn't
I
either.
understand how critical support is. I understand that you have to have the right people that make the right policies for us as small business owners. So no tax on tips has been an extreme blessing for me and my business. Not just mine, but I know so many people across the country. I know a lot of us don't want to talk about the good part of it. We only want to share the negative, but I'm here today to tell you you've done a great thing. Thank you for just loving on us and showing us that even in small town Hope, Arkansas, and I have got to say this, I have the best governor in the world. I don't only just call Sarah my friend, I call her my sister. And so
yeah, Sarah Huckabee
that's
Sanders.
why I am here today to just tell you that no tax on tips has been an amazing blessing for me. President Trump has been an amazing blessing for me. And at the end of the day, Jesus has been an amazing blessing for me. I love you guys and thank you so much because I am a youth pastor, but I will not preach on today. I love y'all. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay, and I think that was the only other speech that he had up, at least that I came across. But there was probably, a number of others, but those are the only 2 that I came across. But there's a couple of more, though. During my first term, I was honored to deliver unprecedented victories for Black Americans and all Americans. I single-handedly secured record long-term funding for HBCUs. I created nearly 9,000 opportunity zones. I signed historic criminal justice reform into law.
During my first term, I was honored to deliver unprecedented victories for Black Americans and all Americans, frankly. But Black Americans, I single-handedly secured record long-term funding for. I told you the historically Black colleges and universities. I created nearly 9,000 opportunity zones with.
If I'm not mistaken, he worked with Jesse Jackson on that.
We have to do. As
he
I
actually
said
just
before,
mentioned that
Tim Scott really,
yesterday after he passed.
He came to me with that idea, and we put it into use, right, Scott? And I signed historic criminal justice reform into law. We got criminal justice reform. Just so you know, for 30 years, you, more than any other group of people, has been trying to get criminal justice reform, and they couldn't do it. And a group of people came to my
they wouldn't
office,
do it.
And they asked me to do it. They couldn't get it. They needed 5 conservative votes in the Senate, and conservative was 5 conservative white votes in the Senate. And of the 5, all 5 of them were totally against, and I called them up, and they were great. They were great. And one of them was Senator John Kennedy, to be honest with you. He was not in favor of it, and I spoke to him, and he was 100%. He's a great senator, a great guy, and you know that he was a tremendous help. So we got criminal justice reform done and approved, and nobody thought it could be done. And it's no wonder that in 2024,
who else worked with that? Was that Kim Kardashian?
Votes than any
I think she also worked with Trump on that.
candidate in history.
Okay, yeah, I I could be wrong, but I think it was Kim Kardashian that also tried to get justice reform, and I think she met with Trump a couple times on that. President Trump announces new job statistics. African-American employment has increased by 182,000 jobs. 500,000 Black Americans have rejoined the workforce. Wages have increased between $1,000 and $1,500 a year, but Democrats told me Trump is a racist.
I agree. Sometimes we have to be very careful because they actually go, and it's not pretty, Leo. We have to get Leo and the DOJ involved. But think of that, Leo, think of that. More Americans are working today than any time in history. And since I took office, African-American employment has increased by 182,000, the highest ever, jobs. 182,000, nearly 500,000 Black Americans have rejoined the labor force since we took office. 500,000 wages for workers have increased $1,000, $2,000, even $3,000, and even sometimes, in some cases, $5,000 a year. That's faster than inflation. So wages have gone up at a much faster clip than inflation. We took over the worst inflation in the history of our country. They say 48 years or 49 years. I said that, I said inflation under Biden has went up more than at any time in the history of our country. They said, he's not right about that. It's 49 years. I said, all right, I'll accept that too. Actually, I think it sounds worse, Harmeet. I think for some reason, because when you say the worst ever, but when you say the worst in 49 years, I'll take that, right? The fake news got me on that one. I think I was right, by the way, but I'll accept 48 or 49 years. But for the first time in many years, 100% of all net job creation is going to American-born citizens. Think of that, 100%. And in the last administration was going mostly to illegal aliens that came in, many of them murderers and others. Last summer, we passed the largest working class tax cuts in the history of our country. That includes no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security for our great seniors. And you're going to see that,
Yeah, that was, what was that, like about, was it 15,000? It was a large number. It was a big number. It was in the thousands of dollars for senior citizens and Social Security. But also with the huge jobs increase, the 182,000, plus there's a lot of factories that are rolling back in. At least, God willing, the tariffs hold, which we're supposed to find out on Friday. Actually, I wonder how that's going to be looking on Polymarket right now. Probably no change because the Supreme Court, they keep tight-lipped on their decisions before they release them. But that doesn't mean that it hasn't gone up or down a little bit, especially with the decision expected to be coming out on Friday, which, depending on when you're listening to this, could be tomorrow. Maybe it could even be today if you're listening to this on Friday. But we've got this from Polymarket. It is sitting at a 27% chance that the Supreme Court rules in favor of Trump's tariffs. Now, this bet has been up since, I want to say, September. Was that what it was? Established on September the 2nd of last year. That's when they started essentially taking bets if you believe that it will or will not be passed, and that is Trump's tariffs. So it was up fairly high early on, and then it seems like it's been relatively low ever since, going all the way back to early November. It took a quick dip then. I don't remember exactly what happened on that day, but obviously something happened that day. But there's even individuals down here in the comment section. I've actually never been on Polymarket before. I didn't realize you can actually leave comments. So if I'm reading this right, this guy put $3,300 into the yes answer. And he says, it is just common sense. If they were going to rule the IEEPA tariffs are illegal, they would have ruled a long time ago. I'm trying to make this a little larger. Let's see. The court has shown in the past it can release opinions quickly if the case demands it. An example, Youngstown Sheet and Tube Company versus Sawyer. There, they ruled against the government after 3 weeks of oral argument. Here with IEEPA, the court... How do I expand this? No, I don't even know. It's not going to let me expand it. Okay, here we go. I guess I was zoomed in too much. The court is treating it with almost no urgency, even though it granted the motion to expedite the case, which, I mean, yeah, I guess there's an argument to be made there that like they did grant it to be expedited. And I don't really necessarily think that they're dragging their feet on it. In fact, if they give their final opinion on it on Friday, I would say that'd be expedited because they well, okay, so like take this one, for example. This person's got 58,500 for no. Am I reading that right? This dude dropped $58,000 on a no. And so this guy, he's got $263,000 worth of positions on Polymarket. Apparently he's traded $2 million in volume, and he's up $132,000 in profit. So that's definitely ominous to see for him to have him put in that much toward a no. But he says it takes 4 justices to grant I can never say that word, certiorari to hear a case, and it takes 5 justices to take up a case on an expedited track. It only takes 1 justice to delay the release of an opinion, but it will be no later than the end of the term in June or July. It's obvious what the decision is going to be. And then somebody else, the same person who said yes, 200 for yes. So when the hell will this be resolved? Yeah, so I don't know why they said January 1st, 2026 when that was yesterday. Obviously that day's coming, already arrived and left. So yeah, anyway, like some high rollers, man. A lot of people putting a lot of money on this. 7,000 no. Looks like recently there's been a number. Well, to be fair, these are all the same person. Anyway, whatever. I don't want to get hung up on that. I just wanted to find out what the percentage was. It's still not looking good, at least on Polymarket. That doesn't mean that they're not going to rule in favor of it. I guess we'll just have to wait and see. It's kind of nail biting because that's going to cause some real issues if they end up voting no and all of those tariffs are reversed, because that I just can't help but wonder, all of these companies and the $18 trillion that have been pledged and invested into the United States, how much of that will still remain here if those tariffs are not going to be brought into effect? And essentially all of these companies would still be allowed to use cheap labor and offshore companies, and they won't have to pay the amount of tariffs that Trump is trying to get them to pay, which is fair, by the way, fair tariffs. All right, so let's move on to the White House. Electric energy, 4 more years, chant erupts as President Donald J. Trump speaks at the White House Black History Month celebration. So this is the last one. It's just a quick one. We're all chanting 4 more years. Of course, the Democrats are going to freak out about that. Oh my God, he's seizing the presidency. It is a dictatorship. Can already hear it. Already. And anyway, rapid response 47, presidential message on Ash Wednesday. Today was Ash Wednesday. Today, the First Lady and I joined the millions of Christians in the United States and around the world in observing Ash Wednesday, a solemn day of prayer and repentance and the beginning of the Lenten season. Every Ash Wednesday, Christians receive ashes in the shape of a cross on their foreheads as a visible reminder of our belonging to Jesus Christ and our enduring need for penance. For the next 40 days, in remembrance of Jesus' 40 days of temptation in the desert, followers of Christ will pray, fast, and give alms to deepen their faith, reflect on his redeeming passion and death, and prepare their hearts for the coming Easter miracle. As the holy season of Lent begins, we are reminded that the practices of prayer, fasting, and almsgiving have been foundational to our strength from the earliest days of our national story. From the colonists who turned to prayer and fasting in the heart of the Revolutionary War, to the unmatched compassion and generosity of America's churches, hospitals, and charitable institutions, these righteous acts of faith over the centuries have always stood at the center of our identity, our heritage, and our way of life. This Ash Wednesday, as we remember the passion and ultimate sacrifice of Christ on the cross, we send our best wishes for a meaningful Lenten season. Above all, as we prepare for the triumphant resurrection of Jesus Christ on Easter Sunday, the greatest miracle in the history of mankind, we pause to remember those sacred words. This is the time of fulfillment. The kingdom of God is at hand. Repent and believe in the gospel. And that was the statement from the White House today on Ash Wednesday. And this is from Tom Emmer, who is the GOP majority whip. He says, as we begin the Lenten season, Jackie and I pray that these next 40 days will bring a sense of renewal and reflection. Have a blessed Ash Wednesday. And this is from the redheaded libertarian, who I read the first post of the episode. Got to church 30 minutes early for Ash Wednesday, and it was already packed. So a lot of people are showing up for Ash Wednesday this year. And from Eric Daugherty, breaking FBI Director Kash Patel, he reveals on Dan Bongino that a major discovery has been made regarding the funders of Antifa terrorists. Wait until you see what's coming in the next month or two on the funding streams related to this. LFG, let's effing go. And there's a couple of quotes here and there, so I'll just give this a play so we'll hear it here.
We're going to look at the facts that exist. We're not going to try to make up facts that don't, so we can serve a political narrative. And wait till you, and I know you know this, but wait till you see what's coming happening in the next month or two on the funding streams related to this. You and I had launched a serious investigation. We had said these organizations don't operate alone.
All right, so here, let me read this real quick. A federal grand jury in Fort Worth, Texas, indicted 9 North Texas Antifa cell operatives, and 7 more were charged by information with offenses including rioting, using weapons and explosives, providing material support to terrorists, obstruction, and attempted murder of an Alvarado police officer and unarmed correctional officers at the Prairieland Detention Center on July 4th, 2025. Announced acting United States Attorney for the Northern District of Texas, Nancy E. Larson. And this was back on November 14th of 2025.
Don't operate in silence. They operate with a heavy stream of funding. And we started looking into it. And guess what, Dan? We found them.
Uh-oh.
Director, your thoughts on this? I covered earlier in this show.
Yeah, so you might ask, well, why don't they just come out with it? Well, because it's the FBI. Because they probably haven't concluded their investigation to its fullest yet. However, FBI Director Kash Patel believes within the next month or two, sounds like they're going to conclude at least that part of their investigation, and we'll get to hear what ends up happening. I hope that they're not just going to, I don't know, arrest like 6 or 7 people, and they're like, okay, well, we got them. Like, no, dude, that's not good enough. We're talking entire organizations that need to be brought down. From Dan Bongino, Life Now, my interview with FBI Director Kash Patel. This is not one to miss, and it's, of course, going to be over on Rumble. So I will just link it if you want to check this out. It's an hour and a half over on Rumble, and that'll be below in the description if you want to take a look at the entire interview. And we'll move on to Secretary Marco Rubio. Today, I'm designating Nicaraguan Prison Director Roberto Clemente Guevara Gomez for his involvement in gross violations of human rights. We continue to call for accountability for the crimes committed by the Murillo Ortega dictatorship and urge for the immediate, unconditional release of all unjustly detained political prisoners in Nicaragua. Sitting at 19,000 likes, almost 563,000 views from earlier today at 11 o'clock this morning. And from Tommy Pigot, actually, the secretary went to Munich. All right, so another one of these, so I got to read this first. So Secretary of State Marco Rubio went to Munich, missed a gathering about Ukraine, didn't mention Russia's invasion in his blood and soil type speech, and then visited the 2 pro-Russia leaders in Europe before heading home. I asked the state why. This is their response. And let's read his response, to be fair. The following is on the record, attributable to Principal's Deputy Spokesperson Tommy Pigot. SV Date is a low IQ anti-Trump clown masquerading as a blogger. The secretary met with dozens of leaders from all across the world last weekend in Munich, including Volodymyr Zelensky. To claim they were all pro-Russian is an idiotic and bizarre claim. In addition to his historic speech at the Munich Security Conference, Secretary Rubio visited European allies in the region. I mean, I find it kind of hilarious that they called him a low IQ anti-Trump clown. I don't even know who he is. I'm sure I wouldn't even go as far as to say I'm sure. I don't even know who this guy is, but it sounds to me like he might have just a little touch of Trump derangement syndrome. So anyway, let's get the response to this from Tommy Pigot, who is the state deputy spokesperson for the State Department. And he says, actually, the secretary went to Munich, gave a historic speech, met with numerous European leaders, including Zelensky, and then visited NATO allies in Europe to advance our cooperation. Your question was clearly bad faith. Ask stupid questions, win stupid prizes. All right. And we have this from Dylan Johnson. Pictured Secretary Rubio meeting with, who is that? That would be Volodymyr Zelensky from Ukraine. And they're in Munich. Now, to be fair, they don't have a date stamp. I mean, maybe this was somewhere else, some different time, some different place. Highly doubt it. I'm just going to assume that is the case. So it says pictured, and then it says you are a clown. So Dylan Johnson, who is the Assistant Secretary of State for Global Public Affairs. And yeah, I don't even know who this guy is. He's a White House correspondent for the Huffington Post. Well, there you go. So they do know this guy quite well because he's a White House correspondent for the Huffington Post. So yeah, I can only imagine the Trump derangement syndrome that he's been plagued with. And moving on to Defiant Elves. Speaking of Zelensky, we got Zelensky says he can't understand Trump's relationship with Putin, and he finds it very painful that Putin gets more than he deserves. Look, I'm not going to entirely fault him on that statement at all. I mean, like I've said before, it's Ukraine. It was their country who was invaded by Putin. But look, dude, that's what diplomacy looks like. And Trump we're on the other side of the world, and he offered his time to broker something between the two countries. That's why he's talking to Putin. That's why he's talking to you. And don't forget, Zelensky, that you were given, what was it, like $130 billion from the U.S. government. So, I mean, it's quite clear that we're helping out. We're trying to help out both sides here, I guess.
Do you trust President Trump?
No.
I trust him in first very important thing that you said, that he really wants to end this war. Yes, he really wants to end this war. And the second point, when he speaks about the children, when he speaks about losses in Ukraine, I trust that it's very painful for him. And he speaks about it, yes. I don't know really all his internal questions, steps. With all respect, I'm sorry, I'm focusing on the war, not on these things. Maybe some of them internal American things even more important for him, I'm sure, than this war. But in any case, and I trust that he really can to end this war. But I don't know to speak about his relationship with Putin. I want to be very honest. It's not about question of trust or not. He has such relations which I can't really estimate or understand. Something which is not vidom or famous, which is something which is not famous. I mean, for me. Yeah, I don't know about it. But they have some relations, I'm sure, and that's why for me sometimes it's very, very painful that his attitude to Putin is sometimes заслуговує, як буде? Deserves. Yes, I think sometimes his attitude to Putin.
Like an army of guys around him.
Good than Putin deserves.
All right. Okay. I'm actually surprised that he went on Piers Morgan Uncensored. I don't know how hard he pressed him or if he kind of kept it plain and simple. But anyway, that interview happened. From DOW Rapid Response for 4 hours ago, the Secretary of War says, I'm delighted to be with you here in St. Louis, known as Fighterland, USA. He visited Boeing Defense, and they announced just today that the Defense Space and Security Headquarters is moving from D.C. to St. Louis. Yeah, I couldn't agree more on that. They should definitely be trying to decentralize DC as much as they can. You know, like just like they do with like military bases and a whole bunch of other parts of American infrastructure. You're supposed to space things out just to make America more complex and more complicated, just for national security reasons. But anyway, there were a whole bunch of these, just like the White House press secretary's her remarks earlier today. President Trump for Black History Month. So I didn't want to include a whole bunch of these because I already did that for a couple of segments. So I just kept it straight to the point because I believe that was really the big announcement that he had, that they're moving the headquarters from DC to St. Louis. So definitely good news. From Senate Republicans, Senator Dan Sullivan from Alaska delivered $25 billion to rebuild our Coast Guard, the largest investment in Coast Guard history. 16 new icebreakers, 22 new cutters, 40 new helicopters, nearly $4.5 billion for infrastructure, and $300 million for Juneau. That would be nice if, I don't know if it would be legal or how they might be able to maneuver this, but with them having $4.5 billion, if it's already accessible, it'd be nice if they could move that money into payroll until the Democrats get their shit together and they finally reopen funding for the Coast Guard. Not sure if they'd be able to do that or not. It would certainly be nice if they could in the meantime. But anyway, let's get this watched.
Largest investment in Coast Guard history, in American history from this bill. It's a $25 billion investment to fully rebuild our Coast Guard. As the chairman of the Coast Guard subcommittee, I was very honored to write a lot of this, but take a look at the numbers. 16 new icebreakers, 22 new cutters, 40 new helicopters, almost $4.5 billion in shoreside infrastructure, $300 million for Juneau, Alaska, to home port the icebreaker Storis right here, which is going to happen.
Nice, man. They're going to give it the home port right there in Alaska. I'm sure they're very happy about that. From DNI, Tulsi Gabbard. Haven't heard from her in a while. Last week, I had the privilege of sitting down with the ODNI Gov leaders, the Office of the DNI, leaders and teammates during our Leadership Town Hall series. I always enjoy and appreciate these opportunities to share updates and ensure mission clarity, answer questions, and receive feedback from the team, making sure they have what they need to succeed in service to our country. Doesn't look like she shared any video, just some images during their meeting. And she said that happened last week, right? Yeah, last week. Okay. And short and simple. And we'll head on to the next. From the White House will be the greatest ballroom ever built, now rising at the site of the White House, fully paid for by American Patriot donors, zero cost to our United States taxpayers, President Donald J. Trump. And the Democrats, of course, are really pissed off about that. At first, they tried to lay it on the taxpayers, trying to say that it was us that were paying for it. And when that fell through, then they said we must investigate all of Trump's donors for corruption and all this bullshit. But anyway, they got a couple of images there. I mean, that's a lot taller. That's a lot bigger than I thought it was going to be. That thing's going to be huge. It's a big-ass ballroom. And I believe they said that the design, they took it from the Treasury. Apparently this, I'm assuming it's this side of it, was pretty much like copy-pasted from the U.S. Treasury. And they pointed out another part of it. I don't know if it was this side, I think, was taken after the White House. So they threw in elements from other government buildings into the construction of the ballroom. And from the BLS labor statistics, consumer prices are up 2.4% over the year ended January 2026. 12-month percent change in consumer price index for all urban consumers, selected categories January 2016 all the way through January of 2026. And the main line is for all items, which includes food at home, food away from home, energy, and all items less food and energy. So there you have it, up to 2.4%. It sure be nice to see it continue to go down. But anyway, that's the latest. Data is not seasonally adjusted. October 2025 data is not available due to the 2025 lap in appropriations. In other words, the Democrat shutdown. So you're going to see a lot of statistics from the BLS when they've got that little glitch, that little missing section at the end of their graphs. And I'm sure it's going to be completely across the board. Anytime you see any graphs coming out of the Bureau of Labor and Statistics, that's going to be that missing section because the Democrats had the government shut down for an entire month. So there was no reporting data because there was nobody there getting paid to record the data. So we don't have the data. All right. Moving on down to Secretary Linda McMahon. She's the Secretary of Education for the Department of Education. I am pleased to support Governor Tim Pillen $7 million budget proposal. By the way, the governor of Nebraska, to expand school choice in Nebraska. Empowering parents to choose the best school for their children is the first step to improving education. Once again, great states are leading the way. I think that's always been the case. I assume that states that don't or haven't already had, a free choice with regard to which school that you want to go to. I'm assuming that they structure it by districts. I think it's actually absolutely ridiculous. You should open up the school to anybody who wants to go to the school. And if there's too many people that are applying for it, that's what wait lists are for. Try to get in as soon as you can. That's how they do it here where I live. And from Governor Jim Pillen says Nebraska is proud to continue working with the Secretary of Education, Linda McMahon, to strengthen educational outcomes across our state. We were first in the nation to join the President Trump administration's new school choice program to help public, private, and homeschool families starting in 2027. This year, we've proposed a $7 million investment to support those same students right now. Every kid deserves the chance to succeed in the educational environment that fits them best. Nebraska catches up on school choice. Very good news. You should be able to send your kids to any school that you want them to go to, not the school that they have to go to. From Rapid Response 47, great news. States are implementing the new SNAP restrictions in 2026, which means in the states that are in red, if you receive food stamps or SNAP benefits, you can't buy soda, you can't buy stuff with added sugars. I think that's one of the criteria. Junk food, essentially. You can't buy junk food with your food stamps anymore, which is insane that they allowed that to happen in the first place. Look at that, man. Even Hawaii jumped on board with that program. And I think Hawaii is about as deep blue as you can get. Is Hawaii the only Democrat state so far? Well, there's Virginia. Like, Virginia leans Democrat, right? I think it's, yeah. I don't know. Maybe it depends on, like, which election cycle, maybe. But I'm pretty sure Virginia generally is blue. But yeah, I mean, from what I'm looking at, it looks like that's the only one. All the other ones are red states. So there you go, man. That's cool. SNAP restrictions take effect in more states. No soft drinks and candy. I would hope that it would also begin to include anything with added sugars or potato chips, any kind of junk food. So we've got this from The Hill. So I'm assuming they're going to lay out the additional states that have jumped on board for this. Sure, it'd be nice if all 50 states participated. I don't know why blue states wouldn't want to. Oh yeah, it's because they hate their constituents with a passion. They just want them to be as unhealthy as possible. They want them to die. They also have a vested interest into doing so because politicians like Elizabeth Warren receives millions of dollars from Big Pharma. And you know Big Pharma's not too happy about this. If Americans are sick, that means that the healthcare system gets a lot more money. So Oklahoma City, 3 more states are implementing additional restrictions on their food stamp programs this week, banning sugary drinks and candy from the list of approved food items. Several states nationwide requested waivers from the U.S. Department of Agriculture to modify their restricted food definitions. The changes vary slightly from state to state, but in most cases, they make soda, candy, or energy drinks off limits. Oklahoma is now one of the states with a new list of items that recipients of funds from the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP, won't be allowed to purchase with their benefits in 2026. Retailers in the state can no longer accept SNAP or EBT payments for soft drinks or candy. According to the USDA, soft drinks are defined as any beverage marketed or sold as a soda, a soft drink, sports drink, energy drink, flavored water, or juice drink containing less than 100% juice. The waiver also states that soft drinks include all fountain drinks and slushies, regardless of flavor or packaging, which is also something that's hilarious. You can use food stamps at freaking gas stations. And moving on, milk and milk substitutes, plain coffee, bottled water, and 100% fruit juice do not count as soft drinks. Candy is defined as basically anything marketed as candy, which could include candy bars, chocolate-covered raisins, and nuts, or similar products. Which, by the way, quick comment, I don't even think coffee should be included in SNAP benefits. I mean, coffee should be seen as a luxury. Baked goods like cakes, muffins, or brownies, and baking ingredients like cocoa powder or chocolate chips do not count as candy, which I think is also kind of ridiculous, but all right. And can still be purchased with SNAP benefits. According to a USDA letter for Oklahoma, the changes were originally scheduled to begin on January 1st, but ended up starting on Sunday, February the 15th. It's one of 18 states implementing new restrictions on what SNAP beneficiaries can buy this year. Similar guidelines took effect in Idaho on Sunday. They'll begin on Wednesday in Louisiana. And of course, we already saw the map of all the states. With these new waivers, we are empowering states to lead, protecting our children from the dangers of highly processed foods and moving one step closer to the president's promise to make America healthy again, said USDA Secretary Brooke Rollins in a press release. But critics of the restrictions say it puts unnecessary restrictions on the poorest in America. Dude, the poorest of all people should be eating healthy. It's about 18,000 items, and that will likely expand, said Chris Bernard of Hunger Free Oklahoma. It's an opportunity to say you're doing something while really just stigmatizing a single group of people for choices that everybody in America really makes. Well, that is the whole point. If you want junk food so badly, then get off food stamps and find a way to make more money. Or work full time, or do something. Do anything that you could possibly do to get off of just the endless cycle of food stamps. And that's really what should be your primary driver if you love soda so much. That's how you take care of business. That's why I say coffee should be removed off of it too. SNAP helps approximately 1 in 8 Americans afford groceries. The new bans on soda and candy aren't the only restrictions on how people can spend their benefits. Non-food items like soap or paper products, alcohol, tobacco, vitamins, medications, and hot foods are already off limits in every state. Probably always have been off limits. It's not like they just cut them off. I'm sure they've always been off limits. You can buy freaking alcohol and tobacco with food stamps. But you know, if Democrats had their way, you know they would allow them to do that. All right. U.S. Department of the Interior. The power of Lake Superior is humbling. A winter storm broke apart the ice overnight. While stable ice is unlikely to return before spring, moments like this remind us how extraordinary and temporary nature can be. So the top left was on the 17th. So this was just yesterday at 4 o'clock p.m. This image of Lake Superior. And then, let's see, what was the next one? So down below was the next one at 4 o'clock p.m. Same thing, just a different view, same time. Then the next morning at 8 o'clock a.m., it was all broken apart. That's wild, man. And the ice looked actually fairly thick. Probably could have walked on it. At least it looked thick enough to walk on. I don't know. I don't live anywhere cold enough to freeze over. I just assume that maybe you could have walked out on there. That's pretty wild, man. That'd be crazy to see like an entire, what would appear to be like a freaking ocean. Because Lake Superior, I'm sure there's no like land on the other, like down at the horizon. It just looks like the ocean. I've been to Lake Michigan before, so I know how it looks. It looks like the freaking ocean. And that'd be just wild to see something like that completely covered in ice. It'd be amazing. All right, Federal Highway Administration. Did you know President William Howard Taft strongly believed in the future of the automobile and encouraged the Congress to invest in road infrastructure? In 1909, President Taft revolutionized White House transportation by replacing the horse stables with a garage and purchasing the first official presidential automobile fleet. Wasn't he also the fattest president, the most heavy set, for the more sensitive types? I think he was. Pretty sure, like William Taft, he was the one that got stuck in the bathtub, right? So it seems to make sense that he probably didn't want to have to climb up on top of a horse anymore. That now that we had reasonable technology to get around by way of horseless carriages or Ford Model Ts or Model As or whatever they had back in 1909. So anyway, just a little, you learn something new every day, piece of information. And from NASA, the second wet dress rehearsal for the Artemis II mission continues as teams power up the rocket's core stage, which contains propellant tanks and charge the Orion spacecraft's flight batteries. Tomorrow, teams will practice fueling the rocket. Of course, it's got the moon right behind it because that's exactly where they're going. They're not going to land on the moon, not yet. They're going to orbit around the moon, and then I think it's 2028, I believe. That's when they're going to actually set down on the moon. So yeah, they're doing the wet dress rehearsal right now. Let's see if they actually have the day announced yet. I believe I don't know if they just kept it to March. I don't see the actual date. So they're just giving just more detail as to what they're doing right now. They're just prepping the mission for launch, but they're still at least a couple of weeks out. So the earliest is March 6th of 2026, scheduled to launch no earlier than that date. So they don't have a definitive date set in stone just yet. It's just that the earliest date currently is March 6th. And let's roll on to the final post from NASA History Office. I didn't even know that was even an account, so I'm going to bookmark that account. It's celebrating 5 years on Mars. NASA's Perseverance rover safely landed on the surface of the red planet 5 years ago today. I remember when that happened because they released a video that was absolutely mind-blowing. They compiled, so there was a camera that was attached to the parachute device that actually lowered it down. It was like this crazy mechanism where it was land when it was in the process of landing on Mars. It was essentially a hovercraft, like a drone that was hovering, and they used cables to lower it down onto the soil. And then once it touched down, then the cables released from this rover, and that drone thingamajig took off flying. And then like 100 yards away, it crashed just on the ground, and that's where it laid. But they had a camera attached to it, and they uploaded frame by frame the entire video and it was sent back to Earth, and we were able to watch it, which looked like somebody was like had a GoPro. It was amazing. It was like the first time ever on Mars that you actually saw like a real time frame by frame style video, and it wasn't all like glitched out, pixelated still images, things like that. All right, so to finish this up, in 2024, it made a significant find. The Chiava Falls rock pictured here provides possible evidence of ancient life on Mars. And I don't know, like this rock, it looks like it may have drilled a sample into this rock. Yeah, it looks like that's the rock that they're talking about. And of course, it took a selfie of itself. It's all dirty because it's been on the planet for 5 years. I want to say that it has a nuclear power cell, which is right here on the back. It's like right there. If you looked at it from another angle, you can see like the fins on it. It's supposed to keep it powered for like 10, 15 years, something like that. But anyway, so I did find the actual landing, so I'm going to play it because I haven't seen this in a while. Remember, this is on Mars. This is not on Earth, even though it looks like it's Earth. This ain't on Earth. This is on Mars.
The navigation has confirmed that the parachute has deployed, and we are seeing significant deceleration in the velocity. Our current velocity is 440 meters per second at an altitude of about 12 kilometers from the surface of Mars.
12 kilometers from the surface.
Heat shield set.
There goes the heat
First
shield.
Have now slowed to subsonic speeds, and the heat shield has been separated. This allows both the radar and the cameras to get their first look at the surface. Current velocity.
Which, by the way, like with Mars being so far away from the Earth, they had to. I believe that they had to upload from the vehicle. I would assume from Perseverance itself. Like that's what it uses to link the signal to Earth, of course, because that's how we get it to drive around and everything. But it had to upload all of this video footage frame by frame. So I can only imagine how much time it took to compile all of these images together, because they had to receive them image by image. And then, like how many frames is there? Like 30 some frames a second, or maybe 60, something like that. But anyway.
It's 145 meters per second. And
so there goes the heat shield. It's falling.
9.5 kilometers.
I'm sure it'd be cool to see it make impact. It's still falling. Ah, come on. Damn it. Just off frame. Of course, they have no...
Converge. Velocity solution, 3.3 meters per second.
So they have no ability to control this camera at all. It's just at the mercy of the parachute.
About 100 meters per second.
Because obviously on Mars, it takes a long time. Like, what is it, like... Probably, maybe 20 minutes or something. I'm trying to recall how long it takes to get a signal to Mars. And then you got to think about 20 minutes to get it back to Earth.
And subsequently, the priming of the landing engines. Our current velocity is about 90 meters per second at an altitude of 4.2 kilometers.
So it's still 4.2 kilometers up.
LVS valid.
Let's try and skip ahead a little bit. And you see the sand dunes.
Back shell set.
Current velocity is 83 meters per second at about 2.6 kilometers from the surface of Mars. We have confirmation that the back shell has separated. We are currently performing the divert maneuver. Current velocity is about 75 meters per second at an altitude of about a kilometer off the surface of Mars.
Here in safety Bravo.
We have completed our terrain relative navigation. Current speed is about 30 meters per second, altitude of about 300 meters off the surface of Mars.
Oh, here we go. Closer, closer,
We have
closer.
started our constant velocity accordion, which means we are conducting the sky crane.
Yeah, here we go on the left. The sky crane, that's what they called it.
Maneuver.
Here we go. It's lowering the rover, bottom left.
Maneuver
That's
has
the sky
started.
crane. It's hovering.
20 meters off the surface.
It's going to gently set it down.
We're getting signals from MRO. Tango Delta.
And there it goes.
Confirmed. Perseverance safely
It's on the surface.
of Mars, ready to begin seeking the signs of past life.
Yep. Happened in 2020. Everybody's all masked up. You got the triple masks on over there at NASA. That was very cool, man. That was amazing. I was so excited to see that footage, because that's the first time from my understanding that they actually were able to send back an actual video, what seemed like a real-time video, which it wasn't. I mean, that was probably many hours. We received it after it successfully landed, by the time they were able to get it all compiled together. But still, that was really amazing. And I think this thing is like damn near the size of a car. It's big. It's a big rover. Because like back in the 90s, those rovers were itty-bitty. They're not itty-bitty anymore. They're big. There's some pretty big-ass rovers they've got out there now. So anyway, that is going to do it for the episode. And if you enjoyed the video, please give the video a like and subscribe to the channel. You get a quick sec, and I'll be dropping a new episode tomorrow evening as I cover the swamp Monday through Friday, covering everyone in it, the politicians, the bureaucrats, and the agencies. And also, I post daily on X, so feel free to comment over there too if you'd like. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a great rest of your night, and God bless America.